What's going on, everybody? I'm Steven and this is Build Brothers, and today we have something exciting. Today we are going to do an oil change. Now you might say, that's boring, I've seen a million videos of that, and you're right. Except the reason we're doing an oil change is because tomorrow at this exact time I'm having the guy that's going to be doing the enhanced inspection coming to pick the car up. And when he's done, assuming that everything goes according to plan and he doesn't find any crazy things wrong with it, the car is going to be ready and we're going to take it for our maiden voyage. So we're going to try out this oil. The oil is Pennzoil Platinum. I read some good stuff on it, cleans the engine up. The previous owner, I don't know when they did their oil change last. They had some Jiffy Lube sticker on there and it has like 6,000 miles ago. I don't know if that was the last time. I don't know what oil they used. Probably conventional cheap stuff, so it's probably a good idea to get it changed. I don't know how bad it's going to be when it comes out. The engine doesn't sound bad, but this will be a good test. Now, they had a deal at the auto parts store. It was the Pennzoil Platinum and then a Purolator Boss, which apparently is their top level synthetic filter. I don't know. We'll see how good it is. I assume it's pretty good. That's what they said there. Seemed like a good deal. Found out later that the local auto parts store beat their pricing by a decent amount and it wasn't even on sale there, so I guess I got sucked into one of those deal things. But in any event, we have that. We're going to do some finishing touches, clean the car up, put the paperwork in the car, and grab a plate, and we're good to go. Car runs, the car's back together, and so I'm going to show you the oil we're going to do, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. So for anybody wondering, this is for a 2008 Mustang GT Convertible with 4.6 liter 3-valve from Ford. This will likely be the same from 2005 to 2009. So if you have anything in that range, this will likely be very similar, if not exactly the same, for the oil change. A note for that, normally you want to replace a crush washer, which is the washer in between the drain bolt and the oil pan. In this case, it's actually built into the bolt, so I'm doing it because it's the first oil change. I usually skip every one in a while. You know, it's like $3 for the bolt. It's not a big deal, but since it's the first one, I want to make sure everything's right, so I got that. It has the washer built in, so we won't have to do anything with that. I got the oil filter. The synthetic oil takes 6 quarts of 5W20, so I got that stuff. We're all set. So now we're going to go ahead and get changed and then get out there and do it. So let's go do it. Alright, let's do it. Alright, so what we're going to do to see how this oil does is we're going to do a cold start of the car with the old oil, which has like 6,000 miles on it. I think it's conventional because it's from Jiffy Lube if the sticker's correct. So we can do a sound check. Then we're going to do a cold start right after I change the oil. So I'm not going to let the engine heat up. So you'll get a pure cold start. And by the time the oil's changed, the engine will be cold. And then it will be another cold start. So let's give it a shot. Alright, so I'm going to shut it off, pull it into the garage, we'll do the oil change now, and then we'll see how it does. Alright, so here's what I'm putting into the car, and then we'll get to it. Alright, here you go. I have the Pennzoil Platinum full synthetic 5W20. We got a 5 quart and a 1 quart. Then we have our brand new drain plug with the little gasket built in. And then we have the Purolator Boss, which I'm not going to wait 15,000 miles, but it's supposed to be the best, and it was a good deal, so that's what we're going to run. So let's pull that in and get it started. Alright, the first thing you want to do is jack up the car. Now this isn't necessary for all cars, but because it's a little bit low to the ground and I'm not the tiniest person in the world, it's going to be easier if we jack the car up. So I'm going to go ahead and jack the car up. Right behind the wheel on either side, you'll see a frame spot that you can do it. You want to be sure not to jack up the car on the side skirts, which is the fiberglass or plastic siding, because if you do, you're going to go ahead and crack them, and obviously you don't want to do that. So right behind the front wheel, you'll see metal there. You want to go ahead and position your jack there, jack it up, and then if you can, if you have one, use and I'll show you, one of these guys, which will go ahead and hold that. This will allow it to not fall. A lot of jacks can hold the car up without an issue, but you're better off throwing one of these under there. It will hold it in place, keep you safe, and yeah, so why don't we go ahead and do that. Alright, really quick, you can see here, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a gap in the side skirt, and then there's a metal spot there just for the jack. I have the jack still here, and then over here, if you can see, I have it supported by the there's a frame support of some sort, or a support. I actually just noticed that the previous owner totally bottomed that out there because there's a giant scrape in it. But anyway, I also noticed while I was messing around that, now of course there's surface rust on the rotors because, you know, it's been sitting for a while. That's not actual rust. But I did notice that there's a slight groove to it, and as I look behind, it's hard to tell, but it looks like the brakes are pretty worn. So I have a feeling they're going to call me out on that during the inspection. I do plan to do brakes shortly after, but that's just something to keep in mind. Yeah, so let's get to it. I'll show you now what the first step is. Alright, really quick, I wanted to tell you guys the difference between your basic latex gloves and then your nice, real heavy duty stuff. So obviously the stuff I'm using are the blue kind, and what you often notice is people will buy these, which is the mistake I made. Now what's the difference between the two? Well, these are very, very thin, and these are pretty thick. They're not the thickest kind, but they're thick. Now why that matters is if you take these kind and you just, I'm gonna put a little pressure to them. So if you go ahead and put just a little bit of pressure to them, I literally just ripped that glove in half, and that didn't require much pressure at all. These guys, there's no way that's gonna happen, and that's nice because if you're ripping around with sharp metal and you know, getting all dirty and stuff, you're gonna rip them. And if you rip them when you have oil all over your hands, what's the point of wearing gloves, you know? Now these guys are just, it's like $1 or $2 more expensive than these. I think these cost like $7 at Harbor Freight, and these guys are $5 or something like that. So you might as well just go with the better ones. You get a little bit less. Now keep in mind you get half as many, but 50 gloves will last you a good while, so it's worth doing. But anyway, let's go ahead and get to that. One good thing to do before you start is to check the oil. Now why would that matter when you're about to change it? Well, it's good to know how much oil you're using, if you're leaking oil, if you're burning oil. So it's a good thing to know, just so you have it in your head. Well, one, if your oil's at, you know, half, then there's something wrong. But if it's just slightly below, then you're probably good to go, especially if you've run 6,000, 10,000 miles on the oil change. You'll be fine. But let's see where we're at. Now, gloves are a good idea. Napkin, shop towels are better. Microfiber, something that doesn't put off lint is good. I'm just using a, you know, regular paper towel. As long as you don't dump a bunch of crap into the engine, you'll be fine. So, what you need to do is find the dipstick. And on the Mustang, it's off to the right here. You'll usually see some sort of handle where you can put your finger in. Now the first time you pull it out, it's not going to be accurate because it's going to have a lot of oil thrown around on it from the engine running. Now the last time I pulled this, I remember this thing is super tight for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why. There we go. And I remember it was a pain in the butt to put back in. So let's go ahead and... What you want to do is you want to clean it off. So you just go ahead and rub your towel straight down it, especially at the bottom. That's what's important because that's where the oil comes. So if you notice, there's a little textured spot there. And there's 2 holes. Generally, right near the first and the second hole, you'll see a textured, and then you'll see a line. And that line right there is your full line. Sometimes your dipstick will say F, and either low or E for empty or low. You want to make sure, you want to be right at the full line, obviously. That's the best case scenario. So what we'll do is we'll slide it back down in there, and you want to make sure you push it all the way in. Which mine is, for some reason, the last step of mine is like a pain to get in. And then we'll just let it go for a second. We're just going to let it sit in there, let the oil, slide back on there, and then we're going to pull it out again. Now this is the one that matters, so pull it out nice and smooth, and then we're going to take a look at the end. So now, if you look at that, I don't know if you can see where that's at. As far as the textured spot, well, actually the textured spot on the other side. And the line that we want to be at is right all the way over. I'm sorry, I'm really bad at doing this with one hand. Let's get a better hand on this. All right. So the line where we want to be is right before that dot, right? And the fill is all the way down there. So we're actually quite a bit low. Now, it wasn't knocking, it wasn't ticking, which is good. So that means, luckily, I don't think we have any damage to the engine or anything, but we want to go ahead and obviously get this oil changed and get it filled up to the right amount. So you always want to check in your engine manual. Usually towards the end, there's going to be a capacities, engine capacities, and you'll find engine oil. If you don't have your manual or you can't find it in the manual, if you just do a Google search, make sure you check the specific engine that you have. If you have V6, V8, 4-cylinder, whatever, make sure you put that because it is definitely different for each engine type. So, in size and everything else. And year. Year's important as well. So, for this engine, it's 4.6 liter 3-valve, the GT model from 2008. And this one takes 6 quarts, I believe exactly, which is really nice because I just dump it all in and I don't have to worry about measuring. If you do have to measure, the 5-quart ones often have a see-through thing on the side that allows you to see how much you're putting. And I'm sorry that I'm sweating like crazy. It's like 100 degrees in this garage. I have a fan pointed at the floor for when I lay down, but right now I'm not getting anything, so I'm dying. Anyway, so we're going to put this back in, and then we're going to go do the drain plug. Sorry, the floor's a big mess, but next thing you need is you're going to need a socket or at least a wrench. And you can't guarantee a wrench is going to work because depending on where the bolt is, sometimes a socket and sometimes even a deep socket, which is the really long sockets, are necessary. For this specific car, this uses a pretty big socket, a 16 millimeter. Your car is going to be different. You're going to need to look that up. I do recommend replacing the bolt. And I also recommend getting a drain pan. These aren't too expensive. A couple, maybe like $10 or something at an auto parts store. So you just take the top off this, and the nice thing is it'll catch anything that flies in there. You want to empty it out, and it has a nice little drain thing here, so when you fill it up, you can just dump it in your old oil container if you have one, and then you can just take that back to the auto parts store. Now, one thing you'll notice is I tend to make a mess when I pull this thing out because this thing, a lot of times when you drain it, it's going to pour somewhere and you have to try to guess where to put this. So sometimes it makes a mess. A good way to take care of that is just cat litter or some oil dry, which you can buy at the auto parts store. So let's go ahead and get under there and find the bolt. Okay, I'm under the engine right now, and if you notice right here, this is underneath the engine, dead center for this car. Oftentimes it's not dead center. But for this one, it's right here, straight back. And that's what we're looking for. So you're going to hook your socket up to that, and you're going to take it off. And when you do, when you get right at the end, it's going to start seeping out. And when you pull it completely off, it's going to pour out pretty far. So you don't want to put this directly under. You kind of want to put this, out here. I'm going to put the camera right underneath so you can see it. Now, sometimes when it's put on, sometimes they put it on pretty tight, so you may have to kind of hit the wrench a little bit to get the to get it loose, and then you can just turn it by hand. So I'm going to try to position this so you can see it. As you can see, I'm making a big mess here, so I'm going to stop the camera just so I can focus on getting this bolt off, and I'll show you once I get it off. Okay, so I have it loose enough that if I just twist it with my hand, it's going to pour. You can see it pouring out the oil now. So I'm going to put this a little bit ahead of it, and hopefully not pour too much on the ground. So let's see what happens. There it comes. Now it's going to pour for quite a bit. What I want to do is actually stay under here, and then once it starts getting low, it's going to start pulling back. So one smart thing to do is wait a little bit and then pull it back some so that it doesn't pour, so it doesn't miss the container. So we're going to let that drain, and we'll be back once it's done. Okay, we're just about done with the draining. It's been going for maybe, I don't know, 7 to 10 minutes. Now what you'll notice is it's going to drip for a long time. So what I like to do is take a napkin or a rag and just wipe that off, because you know, it's just going to make a mess under here, and it may burn off, and so I like to get that whole area clean. You're not going to get it perfect unless you really want to. You can come under here with like some degreaser and stuff, but you got to be careful. You don't want to get that inside your engine. So I have the new oil drain plug. Now, like you can see, it's dripping again, which is fine. Here's the new one, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in there, which will help it stop dripping. And then once it's in there, now one thing I'm going to tell you is I'm going to tell you the perfect way to do this, and then I'm going to not do it that way. So the perfect way to do it is to get a torque wrench, figure out the torque settings for your specific bolt, and use them. I'm not going to do that. I usually hand tighten a little bit, you know, pretty tight, but not too tight that I can't get it off. So that's what I'm going to do, and you're probably safe doing that, but don't. The right way to do it is to go ahead and torque it down properly. So if you want to not do that, then that's your own risk. I don't do that. I don't worry about it. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten it down, hand tight. Okay, so I did it with my fingers, and now I'm going to tighten it down pretty tight. Not too crazy tight, but tight enough that it's not going to come off. So that's pretty tight. Yeah, that's tight enough. Alright, so the next thing to do is to find the oil filter. Now the oil filter is it could be various colors. For the Mustang, it's actually right above me, and it's this guy right here. It's going to be a cylinder. Depending on the brand, it will be various colors. It looks like they went to Jiffy Lube, so I'm thinking this is a crappy filter. We'll do some inspection of it when we take it out. But the trick here is, if they did it loosely, you can grab it by hand and just twist it counterclockwise and it'll loosen. There are oil filter wrenches, which I do have one, and I'm going to use that. I recommend it if you're going to keep doing it, just because sometimes, depending on the location, it can be a little bit difficult to grab it, and if it's really greasy, like this one actually is, it's going to be hard to get a good grip on it. It can be a real pain. With a wrench, you literally just hook it on and you turn it, and it'll loosen, then you can just do it by hand. You want to make sure that the drain pan's below it, though, because there will be some oil inside here, and then there'll also be some oil in the filter neck, you know, the little spout that goes into the filter, so it's going to pour a little bit, and you want to be able to drop the filter into something, so you don't want to drop it on yourself or you're just going to make a mess. So I'm going to go grab the wrench and I'll show you how to use it. Okay, I wanted to show you the two different types of wrenches you can get. This is a band style, and the way this works is you open it up fully, which it is, you slide it over the filter, and then as you pull away from it, this thing will tighten. as you can see. And it will squeeze around it, and then you can loosen it. So you just literally go like that, and it will loosen it. This is essentially the same, except it doesn't wrap all the way around. It uses a jagged edge. As you can see, this thing can get pretty wide if you go like that. In comparison, this guy can do a much bigger filter. The band ones, you can get band ones in pretty big sizes, but I generally use this one because it's, you don't have to be able to get you don't have to get fully on it. You can just grab it from the side and do it. So I like to use this one, but if you find one that fits your filter, which you can just pull a filter out of a box at the auto parts store and try it out, and you'll know if it'll fit. But for me, I'm going to go with this guy, so let's go ahead and try it out. Okay, like I said, you want to position sorry, I know the camera angle is really wacky, but you want to position the drain pan directly below the filter, which you can probably barely see. So then you want to go ahead and take your filter wrench or your hand if you can get a good grip on it. Now for this one, I'm going to need the teeth to go to the right. So I'm going to hook it on just like that. I'm going to hook it on right around it, like this. And you want to give yourself a couple inches of room because, like right here, you can see that there's a hose of some sort here. Looks like I'm not even sure what that is. So you don't want to go smashing into that. So give yourself a little bit of room, tighten it down. It's going to clamp down a little bit, and then you'll feel it. See how that just loosened? And if you want to, you can keep using it. You can just slide it back and do it again. But you'll notice it'll get really easy, and then you can just do it by hand like this. Now you want to keep your face away from here, because especially if your engine's hot, because this could pour very hot oil on your face. So you can see it start draining there. So I'm going to align the drain pan. I'm going to let it. Then I'm going to slowly do this. Don't do it fast because it'll spray. You'll spin the oil into the air and it'll get all over everything. And you might say, well, I don't care if I make a mess. Well, the problem with that is it's going to get all over you, but then also your engine, and you're going to start dragging it, down your driveway, and it might start smoking. So better off just not doing that. Alright, I'm going to pull this out and you'll see why you don't want to have your face under this. Okay, so you can see that oil pour out of there. Alright, so I have the oil filter and the oil drain plug. Now, as I look at the oil drain plug, you can actually see I don't know if you can see it, but I can see it right around the angle that's pointed right about there. I don't know if you can see that, but there are actual shards of metal, which is a scary thought. So that's not good. It's a good thing we replaced that. And then this guy, this is a Service Champ. I've never heard of that brand, and I am glad that I changed it, because that does not sound good. The oil looks pretty grungy. Alright, so this is the Purolator Boss. Now, this is a synthetic filter. It's their top of the line filter. It's a little bit bigger than the other one, and everything else, I'm sure everything else is relatively similar. This is a metal filter. It looks like it's metal on the inside. One important thing to tell you is this, which I did not know this when I first started changing oil when I was young. So it's, if you're watching this to learn, if you don't remember anything else, make sure you remember this. On all oil filters, you'll see a rubber ring here. And this is a gasket that seals the oil filter to the bottom of your engine. If you accidentally left this out, you would leak oil all over the ground. So one thing, you have to put nice fresh oil on this. You want to kind of cover it. So what I generally do is just pour a little bit of oil in the cap from the oil bottle, and then I just dip my finger in it. And what a lot of other people do is they actually put some oil in here, which is a good idea too, because when you first start the car up, there's not going to be much oil on your engine, so it'd be nice to have some ready to spray into the engine. So I'm probably going to do both. The other thing, which is even more important, is when you take this off, you have to be careful, because if the previous person did not lubricate that, it could stick to your engine. And the reason that's important is if you don't realize it and you go and stick this new one on, no matter what you do, even if you lubricate it, if you screw this on and you start your car, you're going to have two gaskets, and that's not going to seal. It's going to spray oil out of your engine. And if you don't notice it, you're going to drain your oil out and you will cause major problems, if not blow your engine up. So you need to make sure that this oil gasket is off, which you can see it here, so this one's good, and you need to lubricate this one. And then it's as simple as just screwing it back on, and that's what we're going to do now. So what I'll do right this second is I'm going to go ahead and lubricate this, and I'll videotape that for you if you're learning. Alright, so I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to take the new oil, open it up, and I'm going to take the cap off. And take this piece of plastic off here. And I'm just going to pour a little bit in here. You don't need much, just enough to, you know, just like, I don't know, that might be a third of a cap full. And what I like to do is I actually like to take the gasket out. So if you just grab it with your fingers, you can pull it right out. It's a piece of rubber. And what I like to do is I actually dip my finger in here and then just lubricate the whole thing. You want this thing to be oily and greasy, which is another reason why you want to wear gloves, because obviously oil likes to ingrain under your fingernails and get into your skin, and you know you're gonna have it for a couple days unless you really wash your hands, and it's a pain. So you're better off just wearing gloves, and then you just throw them away and you're done. So once you're done with that, go ahead and press that back in. Make sure you have it pressed all the way in, like that. And then what I do is just take that cap full of oil and pour it right into the filter. And then I will also just pour a little bit more in there. Now understand that the side of the oil filter actually absorbs some of it into the filtration part, so it'll seem like you're pouring a ton in there. And it's funny because I had it filled up maybe 3/4 of the way, and now it's down to like 1/4. So it's definitely embedded in the filter right now, and it just keeps going down. So I could probably keep filling this, and I probably will fill it a little bit more, but that's, you just want to get some oil in there, make sure your gasket's nice and oiled, and then we're going to screw it on. So we'll go ahead and get under the car now. Alright, as you can see, or hopefully you can see, there's no oil filter in there. I wiped it down, I wiped the areas down that it dripped on, and I hope I didn't overfill this filter because I do have to tilt it a little bit and I might pour some oil out. So I'm hoping that it absorbed enough of it, and then you can hopefully see what I'm doing. I'm going to do it real, oh shoot, yep, it definitely is going to leak a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to do this quickly because I don't want it to pour out too much of the oil. So you're essentially just going to line it up, line the little hole at the top, and turn it clockwise. You should be able to do this by hand. And I do recommend having clean hands when you're doing it because it's going to be pretty hard to tighten with it all greasy. Now for myself, I definitely poured oil all over myself when I did it, so I'm gonna have to wipe down the filter to get it. As you can see, my hand is completely covered in oil. So for this time I'm gonna use the wrench just to tighten it a little bit. I don't want to dent the filter up too much, but I just want to make sure it's tight enough. Should be good. Yep, that should be good. Alright, so once we're done there, you want to wipe everything up. Make sure you don't have oil dripping everywhere. So that way you don't have to deal with smoking and stuff like that afterwards. Have it all wiped down, and then we're going to fill the oil up, and then we're going to start it. Alright, the next thing you're going to need is an oil funnel, or a funnel. You can buy these for like $2 at Walmart, and you're going to need to find your oil filler. Generally, we'll have some sort of information about the oil on top of it, and it's usually right, on the engine, obviously. So for the Mustang, it's off to the left, right next to your throttle body here. So we're going to go ahead and take this out. Now, before I do this, I generally like to take it off the jacks. It's easier because the car is pretty high up off the ground, and when you check your oil, you're going to want to be able to have a level car. You don't want to have the car jacked up. So we're going to go ahead and take it off the jack, and then we're going to go ahead and fill it up. Alright, car's off the jack now, so we're going to go ahead and turn this left. Take that, stick our funnel in there. Now, if you use the funnel before, it's a good idea to wipe it down. I used a microfiber cloth to make sure that it was nice and clean. You didn't have any dirt or whatever in there, so it's it's fairly clean now. I always use it for oil, so I'm not too worried about it being perfect. If you use other chemicals in it, say coolant or something like that, then you want to clean it pretty good, or just get a separate filter. So we're going to go ahead and fill it up with 6 quarts now. It is right at the fill line. You have to trust me, and I don't think it'll focus on that. So now we're going to put the car right where it was before, and we're going to do its first cold start, and we'll see how it sounds. Now, understand that the first second or two that it runs, it has to move the oil around, so it will likely make a little bit of noise, but it'll quiet up right away. So I'm going to push the car back just so we don't have any pre-start, and then we're going to start it up, and we're going to see how it sounds in comparison. And then at the end of the clip, I will put both cold starts back to back, so you can do a comparison of fresh oil change versus a sorry about that, there was a spider on my arm. Tried to be manly about it, but that scared me a little bit. Anyway, we're going to do a back-to-back video so you can do a comparison of what it sounds like with dirty 6,000 mile oil, which is probably crap oil with a crappy filter, versus some nice synthetic Pennzoil Platinum. So let's see how it does. To see if we can tell any difference. And that's it. That's done. What I like to do is I like to let it run for a while to get the oil circulated through everything. So I'm going to probably let it bring it up to normal operating temperature. Wait till the temperature level gets right in the middle between high and low and on the dashboard, and then I'll shut it off and it'll be done. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and clean it out because tomorrow we're getting it inspected. So that's really all you have to do, though, for an oil change. It's a little 5-minute tech tip for you to do this. This oil change will work on 98% of vehicles. So if you have a Toyota Camry or a Honda Civic or a Dodge Challenger, it doesn't matter. It's an oil bolt, a drain bolt on the bottom, and drain it out, change the filter, put a new one on, lubricate the filter, fill it up, make sure you fill it to the right capacity, and that's it. Just make sure your capacity is good, check your dipstick, and you're done. It's super easy. Anybody can do it. Go do your own. Don't pay people to do it, and you could probably save a bunch of money, feel good about yourself. So get out there and do it. Make sure you check out our other videos. We have a couple other 5-minute tech tips. We're going to have a bunch more. We have the build of this car. We have my brother's 2JZ 240Z build, twin turbo. That thing's going to be a monster. So make sure you check it out. And of course, subscribe. Tell your friends. comment below. Tell me what you thought. Tell me what I missed. Tell me what I can do better. And until next time, guys, see ya.